Hey, what's up, everybody? This is another episode of Thoughts and Goals. This is going to be a really impromptu episode because I don't have like all my desktop and my recording equipment and like ability to edit the video and everything. So we're just going to do this in one take. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I am in Colorado. So this is kind of acts like a video blog. Like if I see this in the future, just record some of the craziness and some of the things that you only get to experience while you're traveling. And I think it's a good thing to write it down or put your thoughts on a video. And so and I like to have a channel that I like to upload to. So this is that. So let me show the background first. This is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I've never been to Colorado before. So look at that mountains. Before yesterday when we arrived. And this is just, inside the hotel room. You guys can see all in there. The hotel room. This is where we're going to be for a month. Pretty basic. Yeah, and the reason we're here is because I'm working remote due to coronavirus, and my wife is working as a nurse, so she's on the front lines for COVID, and they need people in Colorado. So we're here for a month now, and we just arrived yesterday. It was a 4-hour-long flight. It was really weird traveling during coronavirus. I guess I'll recount that story because not many people will be traveling by airplane during this time. They've opened up since December 1. It's December 16 now. 17, something like that. It's like Monday of 2020. And they've opened up flights for all the seats. So the whole plane was full. And it's first come, like the first people on the plane choose their seats. And so we were in like the third section that got called up. And there were only middle seats left open, like up and down the entire plane. So we kind of just walked to the back to see if there was going to be any open seats. There weren't. So me and Jolie had to sit separately. So you're sitting next to two strangers with your mask on. People weren't really down to talk or anything. And it was just strange. Like the lady next to me kept like wiping her nose like she had like a stuffy nose or something. It was just odd. It definitely wasn't socially distant. Definitely wasn't safe. I mean, I guess technically we all had masks on, but the airlines are definitely trying to stuff as many people as possible to be, for the Christmas season, for the holiday seasons that everybody's going to be traveling. But anyway, hopefully we were safe. I'm just not going to know. But we're here. Jolie, this is her first day of working, and it's her first day that I got to work from home, and everything went fine. I'm doing the hotel Wi-Fi, which is pretty slow, but I've got my laptop here. Here, I'll show you the setup. So, yeah, I got Dishonored going on. I bought some new games on the Steam sale just in preparation for this trip. I got a kitchenette. Not really typical for a hotel room. And, yeah, I mean, I want to take this opportunity to, a month away from home, from Florida, in Colorado. I've never been, and it's a great opportunity. We got our flight paid for. She's getting a lot per day, per hour to work. It is cold. It was like 40 degrees. And I went out and just walked for like an hour today. I got tacos. I got really good tacos. I just walked. I literally picked a direction outside the hotel and just kept walking until I found something. It was about a mile away. And I'm cold as hell, but I was seeing all these people out there like running, like jogging. Like I saw one guy jogging and he had shorts on, and he had like this long sleeve like long johns, but that's it. No hat, nothing. And I mean, that's just crazy. I was up there with this on, with gloves on, and with like this poofy jacket because it's just cold. There's snow on the ground, and yeah, it gets to be about like 20 degrees in the evening. It's probably like getting there close to there right now, and it's like 5 or 5:30 p.m. But anyway, yeah, we took this trip. It's gonna be from now until, you know, over. We're gonna be here during Christmas. They're probably gonna have her work Christmas Day. So it's gonna be just weird, like not really get Christmas and New Year's, but we probably wouldn't be. We'd probably go see family, but because this is such a weird year, it's okay to kind of do things differently. And we took the opportunity, and just being in Colorado is amazing. It's, you know, it's an awesome state. People have been nice so far. I haven't really gotten a chance to get out. Like tomorrow, we took a day off. I took a day off work. She doesn't work, and we're gonna go hiking. So I'm gonna take some videos and upload them, just of the hiking trails, because it's just amazing. Like, we don't have mountains in Florida. I'm sick of seeing everything that's like flat. I love Florida, but it's no mountains is definitely tough. You know, you do have beaches, you do have nice weather, but it's nice to get some elevation change, and you definitely have that here in Colorado. The people are different. I still want to like try to go out and talk to people, but with coronavirus, it's just strange seeing everybody with a mask on. But, you know, it is what it is. But I still could try to go out and talk to people. I'm going to definitely try to do that. I signed up for a figure drawing class because I like to sketch and do stuff. Even though I'm not very good, but that's why I'm signing up for the class. That starts in January, like a week or two after we get back. So I got to practice that during this month when I've got some time. And, you know, I could still do magic drafting to win. I can't really record the screen, but whatever. I could just practice, I guess. I probably won't worry about it for this month. Yeah, there's no way to record the screen. And then writing, I can work on the writing. Just got the laptop here, work on sketching, and then play some games. And I think that's how we're going to spend the downtime while in Colorado. You know, I guess it's a little bit lonely, but I'm all right with it because during quarantine, I've kind of been on my own this entire time. You know, you have, like, I got roommate back at home. He's cool to hang out with. I got, you know, parents, brothers, sisters in town. I have some friends I used to play Magic with. But during quarantine, it's kind of been on Discord and catching up with people remote. You don't really hang out with people. So this is a great opportunity to, like, take a month and be, like, alone in a hotel room. It's fine. You just go out hiking on the days off, and I'm staying inside, staying safe, like, and just connect with people. So I don't think I'd be cool with all of that during normal times. It'd feel kind of lonely just to be out there, like, well, you're just gonna go to a hotel room and not know anybody in another state, thousands of miles away. Like, normally that sounds weird in December, like, but it's good during this time. So, yeah, let's see. I read a lot during. I got a lot of books recently on my Kindle and just buying myself for them, buying themselves for me. And yesterday I got through like half the book. I got through Guns, Germs, and Steel by, his last name's Diamond. He's like a professor of, it seems like anthropology or history or human studies, things like that, because he's very well versed in all of that. His first name might be Jack or something that starts with J. But it's a super fascinating book. I'm sure you guys have heard of it because it's on like New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction. This outlines, so Guns, Germs, and Steel refers to the things that the Spanish conquistadors and the general European settlers had, what they had over the native cultures when they entered from the old world in Europe and Asia, primarily Europe, into the new world in the Americas. And he goes into a broader context of why is it that some civilizations, oh, that's kind of a nice, that's a nicer shot. Why is it that some civilizations took over others? Is it because, and the most like don't think about it answer would be, well, some cultures and some people are smarter and they develop technologies faster, and so they're able to take over the barbarians or the lesser savages and the people, and because the smarter people were able to take over the dumber people, that's why. Well, that's totally not true. It's totally not. It's a very like fuzzy way to look at it. It's not accurate. It's not reflective. You're not taking in all the circumstances, and it's not saying that. It's very reductionist to say, well, because one group is better or smarter than the other group, that's why they took them over. Well, why is it that one group is ahead technologically? Why is it that they developed steel faster, whereas the Native Americans or tribes in the Amazon, why did they not develop steel? Why did they not develop a state chiefdoms and bureaucracies, and they had some forms of agriculture, but there was lots of tribes, lots of still hunter-gatherers before the New World interacted with the Old World, or the Old World interacted with the New World. And how was it that Europe and Asia developed independently and other continents didn't? How come North Africa is so much more, to this day, why are there more developed nations in North Africa than Middle Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and lower, all the way up down to South Africa? And the reasons are kind of interesting. So the premise of the entire book, is kind of some of the basics of it is, if you look at the major axes, across Europe, across Asia, it goes east-west. Right? There's huge amounts. So from all of Asia, all of Europe and all of Asia, there are common plants you can plant. So becoming like developing out of that hunter-gatherer society, instead of having to move to get your food by following herds and hunting, they were able to, in a more controlled climate, farm and develop agriculture that much faster. That way they become sedentary. That way they become able to spend a few months per year planting all their crops, and because they're not moving, they could store the crops, and then they can pay other people to develop, you could specialize. Instead of every man out there having to hunt and gather, become like half the population becomes farmers. You do this, the other half can start to work on other things, and that's how culture and civilizations develop. And so Europe was able to do that, Asia was able to do that, but if you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, you can't domesticate a lot of cattle. Like, if you just look at the species that are in Europe and Asia, they were able to have horses, they were able to draw chariots, they were able to tame dogs, they were able to tame all sorts of other animals, whereas the equivalents in like Sub-Saharan Africa would be like zebras. Well, to date, nobody can tame a zebra. They're just way too dangerous. They just don't respond the same way as horses do. And so because you're not able to do that, and you've got other dangers, you have to be moving around constantly, and you can't get to the agriculture civilization that much faster. And especially so in the North America and South America, where the major axes are north-south. So you can't have trade going along east-west where the climate is all the same. So you have to, if you're going to trade, if people are going to move, it's going to go from different climates. So if you're trading a certain type of plant that grows really, really well in this certain latitude, you try to trade it to nations in the south, they won't accept it because you can't plant it as good in the south. There's also barriers. In Africa, the huge barrier is the Sahara Desert. Not a lot of people went from the top to down, so there just wasn't a whole lot of trade. Whereas above the desert, into all of Central Europe, Northern Europe, and all of the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, and then out towards Asia, towards China and then the coast, there's a whole path, and that all the latitude is the same. So a lot of the plants that you can grow just work along, from France to Eastern China. So that's kind of interesting. People could travel much easier because the climate was controlled. You can't travel through the desert, so Egypt was very there was lots of trade happening on Egypt, but all of it happened throughout the Nile. But if you look to much more west of the Nile, you have those other countries there like Morocco, Sudan. Historically, you've never been able to travel through there. So trying to get goods and trading with people lower, it just wasn't done. So those people just turned out to be more like tribal. Diseases affected them a lot more, so they can't grow and scale. Like they can't, it's really hard to have a tribe of people that is high numbers if you have diseases that they'll wipe you out. But if you have running water, you have medicines, you have knowledge, all this stuff that's traded along like the Silk Road. So like you have, Chinese solutions to diseases that occurred in Europe. That trade was happening at a much earlier time. And this just has super compounding effects over the entire time, hundreds of years in the past and as it develops. So, and then there's a lot of factors that are totally random. I already mentioned one of them, the domesticated species. Nobody had any control over that. And then another one is germs. The kind of germs that developed in Europe, they built resistances because they just had more people and more interaction. So like people from Spain interacted with people from Portugal, people from France, people from England at just a higher rate. And so it kind of built up resistances to smallpox, to all these other diseases that affected people. But when they brought it over to North America, South America, into these tribes that of only, maybe like 10,000 people, like these people had developed their own little resistances to their own diseases that had happened there, but they weren't affected. They didn't interact with many other tribes. Like many people didn't travel more than 10, 15, 20 miles away from where they were born. Whereas in Europe, that wasn't the case for the average citizen, even dating back to like the Middle Ages. Like a lot of people traveled. They had contact with people that, even if individual people didn't move far from where they were born, they had regular contact with many people that traveled hundreds of miles. It was just much more common from even 0 BC or AD or whatever. That was just common. And it was not common at all in North America up until 1400, whereas people in the 1400s, as we know, were traveling all around using very sophisticated technology. There also just wasn't a need for people in like New Guinea, the Aboriginals in Australia, in Brazil. There were like some highly developed nations that grew into like almost nation states, but even those nations, I'm thinking of the Aztecs in Mexico, they were blocked off from trading by the isthmus, the little narrow, like where Panama is, and all those little areas. So they didn't really travel by land to interact with the tribal people in Brazil and the peoples of South America, which tended to be and remained always up until, obviously they're developed now, but they just were very, very tribal. So you only had one major civilization. Well, that civilization independently developed, didn't need to develop the wheel and did not develop writing, but they still controlled an entire civilization. And they did not interact with the Native Americans back in the day of, what is present-day America, because there's a huge desert where North Mexico and Texas is. So why would people travel across that, you know, desolate, like, it's just not worth doing. You want to travel across places with good temperature, good climate, good trade routes, things like that. So you did have an independent nation that was developed, but they, you know, they weren't interested in traveling much farther. They had everything they needed. Whereas Europe, they had something about them that they wanted to travel and interact. So yeah, I went on a tangent on this book. It was super fascinating. There's so many more details in the book. If anything I've said is interesting, you should definitely read the book. I would recommend it, or just a summary of it, or I can, you know, write in a comment below and I can give like a more formalized. This is literally just me sitting on a plane for 4 hours and then sitting in line for 2 hours to get a rental car, reading this book, getting through a huge chunk of it, and then talking about it now. I also started another book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, he's a pretty old guy, but it's like a pop psychology book. He won the Nobel Prize in economics, and I really like just all the kind of psychology and economics tied up together. You know, you study macroeconomics, and it's, you know, Keynesian economics versus, you know, should we be in a more socialist society? Should we have, what are big, huge market incentives? What does it mean when you not devalue the currency, but what's the word? Detach your currency from the gold standard, like what was done in the 70s. And I mean, these are all macroeconomics, right? But what I find more, and that's fun, that's kind of interesting, but what I find more interesting is like psychology and microeconomics. So incentives, like elastic demand versus inelastic demand. It's like, if something is like gas prices, if you need gas and you've got 1 bar left, or you've got 1/10 of a tank left, you absolutely need it. Your demand is inelastic. You cannot stretch it. Like, you will pay, if it's $5 a gallon, you're paying $5 a gallon. Or like diminishing utility, where if you are starving, that first slice of pizza, you might pay like $100 for it, given the right circumstances. But if you aren't that hungry, or let's say you're on your 4th slice of pizza, like, you're not going to pay, like, the amount goes way down. And all that little microeconomics make, what I've described as like the really obvious stuff, but you can get really more in depth and almost read people's minds and start to see how the human mind works, and then you can hack that and like prime people by asking a survey question. If you want them to vote for someone, you ask them, what do you think about this? And then you get them happy, and then what do you think about gun control? And then what do you think about this candidate? And there's all sorts of things you can do. So, you can use that if you're trying to gain influence, or you're trying to knock on people's door and get them to vote for Bernie Sanders or whatever the hell you want to do, waste your time with. So that's what Thinking Fast and Slow is all about. It's kind of System 1 thinking. In the very first chapter, this is what he describes as System 1 thinking versus System 2 thinking. And System 1 thinking is that initial, like, they flashed in 1/10 of a second a picture of a politician, and they said, would you vote for him? And people can just oddly, like, you give them 30 seconds to think about it, and they kind of, but the entire time, and they do this by studying their pupils to tell when the decision was made, and they could tell once it dilates, like, if they liked the guy or they didn't like the guy based on 1/10 of a second. There's a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. That is System 1 thinking. That's your immediate, like, you hear a loud crack and you just turn and you look at it. That's System 1 thinking. And like YouTube thumbnails, right? If everybody wants to have like a snappy, nice good-looking YouTube thumbnail so someone will just click on it impulsively. It's a good strategy. That's type 1 thinking, system 1. System 2 thinking is when you take a step back. It's that 30 seconds. It's tell me about the candidate's policies before I decide to vote on him or not. So my whole thing has been, you've got to have, if you're trying to sell something, you're trying to get people to watch your videos, you gotta hack both parts of their brain. System 1 thinking, system 2 thinking. So yeah, that's outlined in chapter 1 of this book, and then he goes on to the more complicated stuff, like with priming people. If you want to really piss someone off, and you want them to, like, almost reversing, you want them to dislike something so they'll like the other thing, present that one thing in hard to read, blurry handwriting in yellow, green, and the person will just get annoyed because they're trying to decipher what the thing says and telling them to do, and they'll go with the easiest option. And they'll do this unconsciously. They won't be able to tell you. Then even if you ask them and give them a minute to think about it, they will come up with all these reasons which had nothing to do with the fact that the sentence said it was just hard for me to read, and so I didn't like it. Whereas if you present it in like strong contrast, black, white, red, you know, royal blue, clear, and you have a sentence and you try to get them to do something, you can tell, like, that just primes people to choose that thing. And so all this is kind of outlined in Thinking Fast and Slow. Really interesting book. I will read more about it and talk more about it if that's interesting. So, yeah. I think that's everything I wanted to cover for, I mean, I'm sure I could think of more stuff, but just for a quick episode of Thoughts and Goals. You know, I don't know if you like this content. I don't know if, not many people watch this type of stuff, especially if you've made it this far, 27 minutes in. If you have, let me know. And I'm trying to interact with you guys. Like, I'm trying to interact with anybody who makes it this far. And I think it's interesting content, but of course that's not for me to decide. And it's just kind of a fun experiment. I don't view it as a waste of my time. I'm having fun with it. I do wish that it would pop more, but I don't really have a winning formula yet. But you know, all that's fine. We're out here, we're traveling, we're experiencing new things. I had dope Mexican food I would never have before, just from traveling in Colorado Springs. I ate on a cold ass day. And, you know, it's just something about, like, you're sitting there seeing the snowy mountaintops and you're just like, life's good. You know, you never think you can do stuff, but just saying yes to things and experiencing all sorts of stuff. It's fun. It's adventurous. It's calming. It's exciting. It's just good. It's good. So, all right. Well, I will talk to you guys another time, and thank you for listening. All right, bye.